Welcome to week 6 in class practice. It's our cognitive regulation flexibility practice. Something many of you had mentioned in discussion chat and other emails that you've been practicing quite a bit of without knowing that you've been practicing it. So let's begin in our grounding and arriving practice. Just noticing the body in the chair, if you're standing. Noticing sounds. And then noticing again, body in the chair. The sensation of the feet on the floor. The seat in the chair. The sensations of the hands and where they might be placed. Inviting the back upright, alert, yet relaxed. And then inviting the eyes to soften. The invitation to look down on something that's not moving, or perhaps even this image. Or closing the eyes if you're not feeling too sleepy. So a process of softening the gaze. And inviting attention to rest on the breast sensation in the belly. Getting playfully curious about the sensation of the inhale and the exhale. Maybe even seeing if you can notice when the inhale begins and when it ends, and when the exhale begins and when it ends. And then noticing how the mind wanders away from the invitation to rest on the breath sensation in the belly, and perhaps notices other bodily sensations, thoughts past or future, or sounds. And whenever you notice this, just gently naming what is being noticed with one word. And tenderly guiding attention back to the breath sensation in the belly. With the kind of acknowledgement and gentleness and tenderness as you would that 2-year-old who's real excited to run off to see something, and you say, yes, I see this. And then we're going back here. So just a ginger, gentle, tender, guiding back. And then inviting and honoring of what is here in this space as we've come together to practice. The body in the chair, the breath in the body, and all the thoughts that came before and will come after. That noticing is also here. Seeing if we can incline just a tenderness toward all of that in its entirety. this experience of being human, this gift of existence that comes with pain and suffering. And that also comes with joy, moment to moment. And inviting a gentle awareness of you are here. You intended to be here. You arrived here. And I am grateful. And taking a moment to slowly, ever so slowly and gently, invite attention back into the screen in your own time. Back into the chat window. Again, the chat window looks like a conversation bubble. You can click on that and open it. If you can't see it, you can use your cursor and swirl it around and it should pop up. Click on it. And inviting in a sharing of what are you noticing? What are you noticing in this moment as you practice? Just sharing what's coming to mind, or you can journal on your own, 2 minutes, just whatever you're noticing. Whatever's coming to mind. So I'm noticing, I was noticing lots of bodily sensations like sleepy, and noticing lots of sounds and noticing lots of thoughts. And then noticing the liberation of resting my attention on the breath sensation. Mandy, welcome. You're noticing a lightness in your thoughts as you breathe and consider where I am right now. Thank you. Yeah, lightness. Yes. Thank you. And wherever we are, whatever we're noticing, see if we can incline a kindness, perhaps even practicing some self-compassion toward what we're noticing. Just, it is. It is what it is, as the saying goes. Yeah. Without, going into being okay with what created what is, right? Just here it is. Okay. So as we move forward today in our practice of cognitive flexibility, cognitive regulation, my invitation to you is to go ahead and use that chat window to share your insights, ideas, thoughts, questions. So please feel free to do that. And what we're doing here is grounding our journey again in this neurology of what it means to be human, and thinking about the typically developing brain. I was teaching another class this morning, and the students' questions were so insightful, of course, and we started talking about some sort of behaviors that they were seeing that may not be behaviors that are present in a typically developing brain or a typically developed brain. So the invitation here is to think about this as far as the neurology of a typically developing brain. And so what we experience as human, one of the students was telling me about a video of an interview with Anderson Cooper and, oh no, the funny comedian, can anybody remember his name? Anderson Cooper, and I lost his name. So he was on David Letterman, Colbert. Thank you, Mandy. Yeah, and Mandy, I think you were telling me about this too, and a different student brought it up today, and how Colbert talks about in this video, and I haven't seen this video yet, and so this is the second time it's come up, so I'm going to go find it. But it's this interview with Anderson Cooper of Colbert, and Colbert talks about the notion that to be human is an honor, and to live as a human is an honor, and that to exist as a human is a privilege, and in that existence is suffering. Right? So in that existence is suffering. And Joan, thank you for your question. Joan is hearing some strange vibrations and wondering if they're in the system. Is anyone else experiencing any strange vibrations or hearing strange vibrations? I actually haven't. Oh, okay. Britt is also hearing them. Okay. Let's see. I think everyone is muted. Oh, you know what? I bet I know what it is. Hang on a second. Hold on. I had to unplug my, is that better? I have my, yeah, it's better. Okay, great. Joan, is that better? Let me know. I'm so sorry. I had my, okay, now I know. It's so cold in my office. I had my space heater on, and it's really ancient. So it was probably doing that. I apologize. Thank you for letting me know. Wow, so we had the space heater meditation practice earlier, I guess. Okay, good to know. Thank you. So in this emotion regulation, there can be a trigger, right? And recalling that in our normal physiology, whatever is triggering us, whether it is something said in a meeting, something that goes down in a classroom, a piece of news or information, you turn on the radio and you hear something disturbing, you walk out of your office or your classroom and you see something disturbing, that remember that the brain's not that smart. So whenever there's some sort of trigger that comes through the senses, sound, sight, taste, smell, touch, any of the sensations can be triggered into an arousal state, right? And an arousal state, often we talk about the fight, flight, or freeze modalities. And this whole process we've been building up with noticing what we're noticing through attention regulation and revisiting emotion regulation, right? This noticing of where in the physiology, what has been triggered. And then beginning to utilize that same physiology that triggers to soothe itself. And so part of that is our self-compassion practices of soothing touch, whichever soothing touch is working for you. And I was mentioning in a class earlier today, I have private soothing touch, which is 2 hands to the heart, or sometimes I'll bring my hands to the face. I don't do that soothing touch in public. More public is 1 hand to the heart. But if I'm in an environment where I'm new to people and people are new to me, I'll bring do a practice that maybe not be able to be seen in the meeting. I'll be sitting at the meeting table, and I'll bring 2 hands, fold them very tightly, squeeze them to remind me that I'm a physical human being in the room, and pull them into the belly so that I can notice whether I'm breathing or holding my breath. So there are all these practices that we carry around with us and can use on demand. And so what we're practicing in this course is getting more and more tools, more and more strategies in our toolkit so that we can practice attention regulation on demand, emotion regulation on demand, self-compassion on demand, noticing the negative bias of the brain, practicing gratitude on demand, those slices of gratitude. And now talking more about cognitive flexibility and cognitive regulation. So with attention regulation, the noticing of noticing, and then the practice of soothing the the naturally occurring emotional reactivity, and naming what is noticed with one word, just one word. Right? We begin to then bring back online our analytical reasoning and analytical reasoning, prioritizing decision-making portions of the brain. Yes. So one of those things that can happen when we bring those back online is we can move right back into the default mode network of the brain, which is mind wandering. Or my favorite way to talk about this when there's emotional activation is, what is it? What is it? Storytelling. Yes, the storytelling part of the brain that again moves into default. Yes. And so what I'd like to do right now is just take a moment. You're welcome to move back into your reflective practice, the practice that you know, the feet on the floor, the seat in the chair, noticing where the hands are placed, the back upright yet relaxed, and the eyes looking down if you'd like. Or you're welcome to grab a journal or use the chat windows. Yeah, Mike said, and the stories are so often judgmental in nature. Yes, they are, because that's part of our survival, part of our brain, right? And so as we move into this reflective posture, let's see if we can locate whether the body is breathing and how we might know that. And then let's see if we can envision a experience earlier this week where we went into mild storytelling. So not totally dramatic storytelling. And if your mind just went there, because it will naturally probably go there, try to pick something that's not too triggering, emotionally triggering. And let's just entertain this story for a little while. The story that you noticed that perhaps you could even immediately recall when I mentioned the invitation to look back into your week and think of a time where you noticed storytelling brain ignited. Likely you're experiencing some discomfort or unwelcomed experience. And let's see if we can engage in some inquiry into that for just a moment. Let's see if we can just get really curious, remembering again that the body's in the chair in this moment. You're always welcome to press your feet into the ground or the seat into the chair, or bring in that self-compassion practice, that soothing touch, or the awareness of the breath. And even in giving yourself permission to count how many counts you can take for each exhale, and then how many numbers you can count to as you inhale. And inviting in again that moment in time from this week where we noticed we were in storytelling. And maybe this is the first time you're considering that. So then if it's the first time you're considering noting when your mind went into storytelling, was there a particular experience that you noticed triggered you in a mild way? Maybe you were in a meeting and you saw some people whispering, and you noticed you immediately made up a story about what they were whispering and why they were whispering and who they are and their motivations. Maybe you received a particular email that was unwelcomed, or a phone call that was unwelcomed, or a letter that was unwelcomed, and you noticed a story being created around what motivated that, or what was really in there, what was between the lines. And to see if we recall this story, if we notice some physiological sensations in the body. Perhaps we're noticing the same physiological sensations now and reminding ourselves that these are just sensations to be experienced. These are not who you are as a human being. They are part of the human experience. Let's see where you can note where in the body these physiological experiences are located. And then see in this memory if you can just envision yourself stopping and breathing. And noting, perhaps even naming, storytelling. And inviting in a self-compassion practice, or a soothing physiological practice. Perhaps bringing the hand to the belly to see if you're still breathing. Counting numbers to each exhale or inhale. And then what do you notice next when you suspend the story? It's an interruption of the story. Interrupting that story and moving into inquiry. What are you noticing? What is here? Anchoring in the body, sensing the breath in the body, looking again. What's really here? What's really here? Anchoring the body, noticing breath sensation in the body. What else is here? What else is here? Anchoring in the body, attention, noticing the body in the chair, the breath sensation in the body. What's possible now? What's possible now? And then seeing if, as you entertain all the possibilities of your response, see if you can just envision yourself picking out a kind and compassionate response. Remembering that compassion can be fierce and it can be gentle. Compassionate can be protecting and it can be soothing. Compassion can choose to alleviate another's pain and suffering. What is possible now? Which choice that is compassionate to you and to others would you like to choose? Can you just take a moment to envision yourself moving in that direction, suspending storytelling? Once again, as you choose a response, and notice the story of how it will play out arising in your mind's eye. And then once again, releasing the vision, the stories, inviting gentle attention to rest on the body in the chair, the breath sensation in the body. Opening your eyes if they're closed, or inviting your gaze to become more focused. What are you noticing right now? An invitation either to privately journal to yourself or to share in the chat window. What are you noticing now, or what did you notice as you practice that stop, breathe, notice, reflect, respond practice with storytelling? What did you notice? What did you notice? And feel free to use the chat window to share. So sometimes people, sometimes when we practice this, sometimes people don't recognize how many times they are going into storytelling or how quickly they move into storytelling. And so as Mike mentioned, it's often like judgment. It's just so quick. It's part, it's part of that survival mechanism, judgment, yum or yuck. And then the other part is of the storytelling as we've gotten these neocortexes and work to develop them, especially in higher education, is that we'll move almost instantly into creating a story about what's happening or why it's happening or what motivation for it happening. So Martha is noticing resistance to the ease provided by the breath, reluctant to release an unwelcome story. I hear a lot of awareness, Martha. Yes. And so what would it be like now to just offer a kindness toward that resistance? Right? Noticing and naming resistance. Resistance is here. Yeah. Hi, resistance. I see you. Maybe even welcoming resistance. Yeah, right, Martha. Hello, old friend. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Hello, old friend. Yes, we see you. I see you. And Mike's noticing with a triggering story, you can pause and move toward care and curiosity about your deeper needs. Oh, beautiful. And seeking to understand or stand under the needs of the other. Yeah, with compassionate understanding, you can choose to move toward acceptance, acknowledgement, and even appreciation of what is up for the other. Yeah, I hear a lot of awareness. Yeah, and a lot of compassion. Yes, and in this course, thank you, Mike, for sharing that and allowing me to clarify. In this course, I'm not inviting you to go. You don't have to in this course appreciate another's experience. You can do that if you'd like to choose that. Sometimes our conflicts arise out of misunderstanding, as you all know. Sometimes they arise out of storytelling brain, and we feed storytelling brain instead of feeding inquiry brain and the stopping, breathing, noticing, reflecting. Instead of feeding that part of our neurology, we feed storytelling. part of part of our neurology. And sometimes when I move into breathing, noticing, and reflecting, some pieces arise that it's like, wow, I don't appreciate that person's perspective, but I can understand why they have it. Yeah. And appreciate can mean seeking to simply understand what the needs of the other are. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, certainly can. Thank you. All right, Ari, you notice urgent stories pop up when something occurs that evokes a difficult earlier time. What works well is a type of strong, caring response, such as, you know what this is. This is not happening now. Yes, thank you. Oh, I hear this. Yeah, you know what this is. This is not happening now. And inviting yourself right back to, like, yeah, that's triggering that, and that was then, and coming back. It's not happening now. I'm right here in this room. And a releasing response. Well, we've been here before. You've been here before. You've noticed this before. And maybe sometimes noticing what's different about now, just so we can make sure we honor our survival strategies, right? But stay in inquiry. What's different here? Yes. Yeah, and I hear the liberation of the laughter, the nodding, and moving on. Thank you, Ari. Yes, thank you. And Joan, it's something like the old choose your own adventure stories. Oh, yes, that's so fun. Yeah, choose your own adventure stories where the reader would come up to the bottom of the page and choose which path to open for the story to evolve. Yes, yeah, that is storytelling brain, isn't it? Yes, I love it. Choose your own adventure. And isn't it the power of the mind? We can go on a whole adventure and watch our physiology respond. Right? We can observe our physiology respond to the story that's being told in the mind. Yeah. Thank you all. Such inspiring awareness. Thank you so much for sharing. It makes these times together rich. Feel free to use the chat window for additional comments, questions, thoughts, ideas. So this practice that we engaged in with just simply noticing storytelling mind is the practice from Search Inside Yourself book by Meng Tan, and the also used in the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. And you might also recognize STOP if you've practiced mindfulness-based stress reduction. It's stop, take a breath, observe, and then proceed. So whatever your symbol that you'd like to have, whatever your acronym that you'd like to have, the invitation here is to is when that trigger is noticed either physiologically or perhaps even erupts out in an emotional reactivity, that's still an opportunity to stop, right? And to utilize the physiology that you carry with you to soothe the physiology, maybe focusing on the breath, maybe moving, breath with movement, maybe counting the number of breaths, or as many counts as you can for an inhale and an exhale. Maybe soothing touch, a physiological soothing touch. But just beginning to soothe that overreactive amygdala and naming what you're noticing with one word, and avoid going into the story, right? So naming what you're noticing with one word. I had an experience yesterday in a difficult meeting where I noticed like a lot of emotions coming boom right after another. I noticed anger, I noticed fear, I noticed frustration, I noticed grief, I noticed sadness, I noticed frustration again. And I was noticing like the physiology of these emotions and the naming of the emotions, but I still wasn't able to soothe enough to get online my analytical reasoning, like what's happening in this meeting, what's really here. And so I thought, okay, this is something you care about. Oh yes, there's passion here. There's so noticing even more that's here in this moment. And again, what's so awesome about being human is this stuff can happen at lightning speed. Yeah. So noticing, naming, and then soothing that physiological reactivity. I engaged in soothing touch, and assistance, a kind of assisted breathing as I talk about it, like pressing in that hand to the belly and going, telling myself to breathe, like literally quietly telling myself to breathe. And then I could ignite that reflection. And the first thing I noticed was storytelling brain. Whoosh! I was starting to tell a story about what was happening in that meeting. It was fascinating. And then I was like, oh, storytelling brain, name that. Stop, breathe again. Right? Soothe, reflect, what's here. And what I was noticing was happening with me was a lot of, did I say something stupid that started this? Am I stupid? I'm stupid, right? So I was just starting to notice now inner critic light up. And so then I moved into Byron Katie's inquiry process. I'm like, what is true for me right now? I'm like, what? I am completely triggered. Like, there's so many emotions here. That's what I'm noticing. It's true for me. Let's just validate. Of course I'm triggered. I think I created this, right? Like, I think I created people now starting to yell at each other. I think I did that. So now, wait a minute. Who would I be if I thought that wasn't true? What would I choose? Who would I be if I thought it was true? Well, immediately, if I thought it was true, I thought I'll be dropping to my knees and crawling out of this and writing everybody an apology. And I thought, what if I thought I wasn't solely responsible for 20 years of this institutional, argument? What if I thought I wasn't responsible for this? What if I thought it wasn't all about my comment, or my invitation or my question? And who would I be and what would I choose? And I thought I would get back in, but more skillfully. I would get back into the conversation, but more skillfully. And so this was a stop, breathe, notice, respond. And the response that I chose that was compassionate for those in the room and for me was to begin to speak to the high level of emotion and honor the evidence pattern of passion for people who care about our students, like our students and student success, right? Just name that, honor that. And then offer a gentle observation and an inquiry, right? And what happened next was I still noticed like the physiology seemed to be demonstrating what was true for me in this moment was all these emotions were ignited. But in the simple process of naming and honoring, I was able to, like, the body, not me, but the body accessed analytical reasoning and the critical thinking and could speak to what else might be here, which then speak to emotions that are here, speak to the passion and the care and concern that is here, and then speak to what else might be here. And in 2 to 4 minutes, the entire room came down about 10 levels in volume. And so what hit me in this is just, again, this beautiful process of the reflection and inquiry that we can do in the process. And so even though physiologically, to be quite forthright, my body was shaking. It was shaking, which is what it does when it gets into real anger, when this body experiences real anger and real grief side by side, it starts shaking, and fear. So I thought, well, this is so fascinating that even though the body is still shaking, the brain can access analytical reasoning by simply stating what is here, and honoring that. But what I had to fix what I had to fix, I used the word, what I had to renegotiate was my perspective on how my thinking was transforming its effect on me. So I think going back to Martha sharing, noticing resistance, right? And naming resistance. And then we can say, you know, and you greeted your resistance, hello, old friend. So resistance is not even something you have to push away. My fear, anger, and grief wasn't anything I had to push away. My physiology wasn't anything that I had to fix. My physiological shaking reaction wasn't anything I had to fix. But what I did need to do is, using cognitive flexibility and cognitive regulation, reframe my relationship to the experience of the moment. And once I was like, it's okay, I can still talk while the body's shaking. I can still speak while the body is angry, while the body is fearful, while the body is grieving. And quite frankly, I didn't know if I could. But I thought, what if I believed I could? What would I do? I would speak. And so that's what happened. All right. Questions, thoughts, comments on that? That's just one example, very recent one, still quite alive. Any thoughts, questions before we move into this practice once again? Okay, so my invitation at this moment is again to anchor the body in the chair. Notice the breath in the body. And see if you can invite a mild experience of an emotional trigger, a mild emotional trigger from your week thus far. Again, seeing if you can imagine yourself back in this mildly emotionally triggering experience, noticing the sights, sounds, sensations, other sensations, physiological sensations of this experience. Noticing words, thoughts. And perhaps you're noticing the body picking this up now as you even recall the memory, which is the power of the mind. And seeing if you can envision yourself stopping in this experience, simply stopping, bringing a gentle attention to the breath sensation in the body, whether that's breath with movement, counting numbers for each inhale and exhale. Gently noticing the experience of breathing. And see in this moment if you can name the emotions that may have been triggered from this experience, from this memory. Maybe you're noticing they're still present now. Seeing if you can name with one word without going into the story of whether they should be or why, or just naming. And if the emotions are strong and it's becoming a moment of significant pain and suffering, perhaps you'd like to name that. This is a moment of pain. This is a moment of suffering. And maybe offering yourself a soothing touch, soothing words. And then seeing if that opens into reflection. What is here? What is being noticed? What is being noticed? And as you invite in what's being noticed, you might see several thoughts. Maybe some of these thoughts have faces or colors or images moving onto the stage of awareness. And see if there's one that seems to be moving into center stage. A particular thought that's moving into center stage. Sort of like the funneling of all that's being noticed, and seeing if there's one particular piece that's really activating the emotional reactivity. You might not notice that, and that's okay. But if you can see one that's moving, it doesn't mean you don't need to figure out if it's the right one or the only one. Just see what you notice as the one that's taking center stage. Let's invite in some inquiry. What's true for you in this moment as you notice this thought? What's true for you as you notice this thought? Who would you be, or what would you choose if this thought was true? In the next moment, who would you be? What would you choose if you thought this thought was true? Now let's flip it around. Who would you be? What would you choose if you thought this thought that's in the front stage, center stage, was not true? Who would you be? What would you do in the next moment if you thought this thought was not true? And let's see if you can select a thought and a particular action that feels empowering and compassionate to you and to others, and see yourself playing out that response. And now taking a moment more to just release that vision, release this memory. You can invite in a grounding into the chair, physically grounding into the chair, the breath sensation in the body, or maybe even standing up if you're not already standing, and shake it out. Or take some breath with movement, whatever it is that allows you to release this practice. Anchor back into the body, in the chair. Breath sensation in the body. And inviting in a gentle attention back to the screen. And again, taking a moment, you can either journal privately to yourself or utilize the chat window? What did you notice as you practice this SBNRR practice with some Byron Katie reflection inquiry in there? What did you notice? While you're either journaling privately or journaling in the chat window, Mike mentioned that he heard that in the example that I was providing earlier, a connection with the shared common ground in the room. Yes, thank you, Mike. And that's what was noticed only after storytelling mind was suspended, physiology was soothed, and the looking again, what's in the questioning, what's here, what's really here, what else is here? Ah, lots of common ground. So that empowered the speaking to the emotions in the room, the common passion in the room. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for pointing that out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what did you notice as you practiced? Or what's alive for you here now? Or what questions or comments do you have? As I take my slice of gratitude and my fresh water. Yummy. What did you notice? Did any of you notice maybe several things? You noticed several thoughts and it was difficult to discern which one was moving to front stage? Or did some of you notice, or center stage? Did some of you noticed, that one, boom, that's what it is. That's what's triggering, right? You might be noticing a flood of different things. You might be noticing one right away. And the point in this practice is you don't have to be right? You don't have to be right. There's nothing to fix about you. There's simply to invite in the stopping, breathing, the noticing, the reflecting, the inquiring, like what is here, what is being noticed. So thinking about what's being noticed as the stage, and the witnesser, the observer, is watching all this parade of emotions, thoughts, sensations coming out on stage, like, and then sometimes something moves into center stage or front center stage. And that's then the process that you can engage in this. What is true? Who would I choose? What would I choose if I didn't think that thing was true? That thought was true. Yeah. Mike, you noticed with connecting with the breath, you noticed enhanced spaciousness and perspective as the observer, less tension and expanded options for possible next steps. Yes, thank you, Mike. Yes, isn't that the beauty and the brilliance? Like, you did that, and that's the gift that existence has given us. So as Colbert would say, human exists, the gift of existing as a human is a gift. It's a gift, it's a privilege. And in that existence is pain and suffering. In that existence we also have gifts, inner gifts that we all carry with us that can be used to liberate us from this pain and suffering and expand us into opportunities to see other possibilities. What's possible now? Isn't that fun? Yeah, and you're carrying it with you. It's free. You didn't even have to buy it, order it, and wait for it to get delivered. You're carrying it. That's exciting. All right, so what else are you noticing? Any other thoughts, questions, comments? This is me waiting and watching the chat window for something to come up. Okay. All right. So the invitation in the SBNRR practice is, I remember when this was first introduced to me, through mindfulness-based stress reduction, the STOP, stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. So you notice the reflection wasn't in there. So I was like, observe, okay, what's here, proceed. So it feels more, boom, I can do it right away. In the reflection piece, I sometimes think, wow, in our environment, in the ecosystem of higher ed, everything is moving fast and we get rewarded, like sort of like the faster we move, the more reward we get, the more we're rewarded, the more we produce, the more rewarded we get. And so I had this thought that I don't have time to do SBNRR at work in meetings with students in the classroom. And again, it's a practice, right? So I practice this, and sometimes I notice I just go to stimulus reaction. Like, there's no response, it's just stimulus reaction. And then sometimes I'm observing, like yesterday, the privilege, like, here's the stimulus, ooh, here's the physiological reaction, ooh, here's all the emotional labeling of the reaction. And again, it's this observing thing, but I couldn't see anything other than this experience until I engaged in the breathing, the self-compassion, to soothe this, so that the noticing of the experience was there, but it dropped into the background, and then the inquiry of what's here. So I noticed when I was speaking, and I speak a lot with my hands, that my body was still shaking, right? So I was still doing like that, and I was like noticing that. So, and then I noticed that was distracting people, so I brought back in. So hands folded, hands into the belly. So remembering that even if it doesn't happen in the moment, the next moment is, we have a next moment until we don't, right? Until we die, we have a next moment. It's a new moment, a new opportunity for a new choice. All right. So, okay. So yes, Mike has another acronym that he's offering. Thank you, Mike. SOBER, stop, observe, breathe, expand, respond, and return. Thank you. To breathe. Yep. Stop, observe, breathe, expand, respond, and return to observe. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Expand. So the noticing, right? Like kind of what you said, the expansionness that comes. Thank you. Okay. So whoosh, look at that. Time goes. All right. So feel free to either engage in your course listserv, your course discussion board, or emails about any comments, questions, resources that you'd like to share, ideas that you'd like to share, sharing those honoring our container that we've created for this course, so no fixing, using iLanguage, and all of those. And my invitation to you is try these on. Try on either SOBER or STOP or SBNRR as you move into your next week, and see if you can really get curious about this thing from Alia Crumb's research, that how you're thinking about something, how you think about it, whether in storytelling and you believe that story to be true, or you're just noticing the trigger and it's like, ooh, there it is again, there it is again, there it is again, there it is again, there it is again. And as Ari was so sharing his great awareness of knowing, oh, it took me back to the past and then coming back. So see if you can really play with this, with that lightness, the playful curiosity, and notice you notice those physiological sensations. What are you thinking about? How are you thinking about it? And how are you in relationship to what you're thinking about it? So as Martha was saying, oh, resistance. Instead of trying to now push resistance away, I'm saying, oh, hello, old friend. I see you. Yeah, fun. All right. So as always, I'm so grateful. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Scott, am I seeing some of the things, Mike, that you're writing? I'm sorry, the chat window just went down. Nope. We're good. Okay, thank you. So feel free to share your thoughts and ideas on our electronic formats. And until then, I look forward to seeing you next week. And I wish you lots of loving kindness as you practice. Enjoy.